So you've purchased a Cryptosteel capsule and you're excited to set it up? Well, we're excited to show you how. Welcome back to Woodland Pools. Today, we're going to take a look at how to set up the Cryptosteel Capsule by Satoshi Labs. Let's jump in. Okay, so first thing before we get started, want to clarify this is not a paid promotion. We are not sponsored by anyone on the channel, but the folks over at Satoshi Labs, the same team that makes the Trezor Model T, were kind enough to send us a Cryptosteel capsule and asked us to make a video and give our honest opinion on what we think about it. So let's take a look. So first thing, let's get this plastic covering off here. All right, so now this thing looks like it slides out here. We're gonna slide this guy out. Cool, so this little container opens up here and we've got a few things. First, we've got this container that's gonna actually hold our Cryptosteel capsule and all of the letters. Some stickers for customization. Got this paper here that's like an FAQ and also has a nice fold out here on the way the Cryptosteel is actually constructed. So we can see here a nice little diagram of the Cryptosteel itself. And then finally, this cardboard here is our actual instructions on how we're gonna set up the capsule. And then this diagram lets us know, corresponding to these slots in our little plastic container here, which one holds each letter so we can more easily find the different letters for our recovery phrase. Cool, so let's switch to the overhead camera and let's start setting this thing up. And before we get into the setup, you might be wondering, well, why would I need a Cryptosteel capsule to begin with? I have my recovery phrase written on 3 pieces of paper in secure locations. Why do I want this at all? And here on their actual shop, Trezor makes a really good point that the innovative design means that wherever you store it, it's accessible to you without being visible at first glance. Because it's a thin little capsule like this, you can store it pretty much anywhere and people wouldn't know that it's a recovery phrase, whereas the pieces of paper are a little bit more obvious. And here's the big one. It's shockproof, waterproof, and fireproof in temperatures up to 1400 degrees Celsius, which is 2500 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's an added layer of security and comfort, knowing that if your pieces of paper were to maybe get torn or wet or burned, you'd never have your recovery phrase ever again. But with one of these, you have some more resistance against some kind of natural disaster or some kind of physical catastrophe that might happen that could very easily damage a piece of paper. But with this being stainless steel, you'd be good to go. But okay, let's set the thing up. All right, so let's go ahead and open this thing up. We're gonna take our FAQ out of here and our stickers as well. So taking a look at our plastic container here, this is our actual Cryptosteel capsule itself. So let's go ahead and remove that. These 3 rows correspond to our letters that we're gonna have available to use. These are our spacers that are gonna go between our words. These are our numbers that we can use to number each of our recovery phrase words. These are special characters if we would need them. And these are our fasteners, which are gonna hold our letters in place. So let's go ahead and open this thing up. Okay, we can pull the lid off. Let's go ahead and set our letters aside. I'm gonna put it in my lap, just out of view in the camera here. All right, so first thing I wanna do is I'm gonna go ahead and open up my Cryptosteel capsule. Let me unscrew this thing. Great. Nice. So here's our empty container. Here's the core of it here where our letters are going to go. Here, a little label ribbon thing here. Okay, so step 1, we see our different pieces here. The character tiles I have in my lap, the separators we looked at, and the fasteners as well. We have our capsule and our core. We've unscrewed it. Let's remove this informative ribbon. So we'll set this aside. Now when we go and we add the letters onto here, some things to keep in mind. What they mentioned on their FAQ is that if your recovery phrase is only 12 letters long, you can probably get away with writing the entire recovery phrase. But if your recovery phrase is longer, like if it's 18 or 24 words, you only need to write the first 4 letters of each word. Something to keep in mind with recovery phrases is that they come from a fixed set of words. There's a lot of those words and they're randomized, so the likelihood of 2 people getting the same recovery phrase is extremely low. But that being said, the batch of words is a known set. So if you know the first 4 letters of any word, you'll know the rest of the word. So for our example, we have this sample recovery phrase that's 24 words long, but what we're gonna do is let's go ahead and just use the last 12 just for the sake of the demonstration. And even though we probably have the space to write all of the words all the way out, really we don't need more than the first 4 letters. So we're just gonna do 12 words and we're gonna do the first 4 letters of each word. Okay, cool. So since we have these numbers available to us, I think it might be kind of cool. We'll put the number for each word, then the word, then a spacer. That's sort of the pattern that we'll follow here. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to get our letters and slide them onto the core. And something to note that while the letters are double-sided with uppercase and lowercase, the numbers are double-sided with 2 different consecutive numbers. So you wanna make sure that as you're sliding your letters onto the core, that you're doing the same side every time facing the same direction. So as a convention, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use uppercase for our letters, and what we'll do is every time that we're entering a new word, we're gonna have the letter or the number that we're selecting to add be face up on the same side as where it says Cryptosteel. That way we know that every time we're always adding them in the same way. So let's get started with our first word. So we grab the number 1 first to indicate our first word, and we're gonna slide it with the number 1 facing face up over where it says Cryptosteel and slide it all the way down. And our first word is gonna be grief. So we only need to get G-R-I-E. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I make sure I get my capital G side here. So G-R-I-E. Cool, so after we've done our first word, let's go ahead and add a spacer. So I have one of these blank ones here. We'll put our spacer in. And then we're gonna do for our second word, after the spacer, we'll put one with the number 2 for our second word. And again, we're just gonna do C-H-A-S for the first 4 letters. Then we'll put a spacer, and we'll put the number 3 for our third word. So go ahead and add the rest of your words in your recovery phrase, and we'll do the same, and we'll go from there. So once you've entered all of your words, you're gonna get this fastener. So it looks like it helps to bend it ahead of time about 90 degrees. Okay, so start off like that, just a little bit past 90 degrees. Okay, then slide it onto the core. And then once it's tilted up like this a little bit, you're gonna wanna grab that little piece and keep bending it. So you wanna fold it all the way so it's bent back in on itself and it's resting right on that center little notch there. Okay? And so now once you've done this properly, you can slide your letters up and down, and that little stopper will keep them from falling out. This is super important because now that you've taken time to do this, if the fastener isn't here or you haven't bent it all the way and you go like this and all your letters fall out, then you have no idea what your recovery phrase is. So it's very, very important that we do this and we fold it up all the way. Okay, so we're not gonna seal it just yet, but this is really important. Do not remove this fastener to read your letters. This is part of the reason why we just did the first 4 letters instead of doing the whole word. So now we have plenty of room here where we can slide this down, and then we can look at each word individually, one at a time. And we can use the extra space that we have here to be able to actually nicely look at each individual letter. That's definitely the way you want to go. You don't want to ever remove this anymore because you really don't want to risk these sliding out and then you lose what your recovery phrase was. And remember, there's no way to get your recovery phrase back if you lose it. You're the only one that knows it. It's only ever presented to you just once, the first time that you get it. So now to read the words, what you're going to want to do is, we see here we had our first word, then our spacer for our second word. So if I want to read my first word, I just can grab this spacer and pull it all the way out. I can see I've got my number 1, and then my first letter was G-R-I-E, which corresponded to our word grief. And if I was putting this into a restore mode on a hardware wallet, when I typed in G-R-I-E, it would autocomplete and give me grief. So a little bit cumbersome to read the words, but it is a nice trade-off because if we look, once we screw this back on and seal it, we have this nice, contained, very inconspicuous container that is stainless steel that holds our recovery phrase. So now a couple things to consider in terms of where you would store this. Of course, for your paper recovery phrase, like the sample one we have on the screen, we always recommend that you do 3 separate pieces of paper stored in 3 separate secure locations, and ideally inside of something like a fireproof safe or something like that. But now that you have this stainless steel container, you can get a little more creative on where you store it. You can store it inside of a wall or a door. And since it's waterproof, you can store it even underwater somewhere. You don't have to worry so much about it being in a safe, fireproof, waterproof location because that's the whole point of the capsule that you just purchased. But the one thing you want to keep in mind is you want to try and find that nice balance between it being a secure location that only you know about and only you can access, balancing that with the fact that you don't want to make it so impossible to get to that if you need to access your recovery phrase, you want to be able to do so pretty quickly. If for any reason you need to restore a wallet and move some funds around, you don't want it to be that it's like buried in your backyard and it's going to take you several hours or a couple of days to get to it. Now, if the capsule feels too small or if reading the letters feels too cumbersome, the Cryptosteel cassette might be the right choice for you. Check out our video on how we set up that one step by step. Or if you want to compare the 2 of them side by side and see pros and cons of each, check out our video where we do that. Let us know how the setup went for you, and if nothing else, we'll see you in the next video.